All I wanted was to finish my shift, not babysit a half-naked man pretending to be dead.
It was one of those nights that made Sophia question every life decision that had led her to mopping floors under flickering fluorescent lights at 2 in the morning. The corridor of St. Lucia Hospital stretched before her like a long, tiled confession, sterile, echoing, and far too honest about how tired she was. Her mop bucket squeaked with every push, and the sound reminded her of a crying child. She had named the mop Diana out of boredom 3 weeks ago. Diana was the only thing that listened. "Diana, if I collapse right now, do me a favor," she muttered, pushing the mop into a pool of water. "Just slide over my body so at least the floor looks clean when they find me." The mop, as usual, said nothing. Sophia sighed. Her back ached, her feet throbbed, and her hair, once tied neatly in a bun, now looked like it was holding a protest. Night shifts had a strange rhythm, a mix of silence, distant machines beeping, and the occasional burst of chaos from the emergency ward. She liked the quiet parts best. The world seemed softer at night, even if it smelled faintly of bleach and despair. She was halfway through the east corridor when the doors burst open, and a nurse appeared, one of those quick, agitated ones who looked like she had been running on caffeine and prayers since yesterday. "Sophia," the nurse hissed, waving a clipboard. "I need a favor. Please." Sophia straightened, already regretting being visible. "If it involves vomit, I charge extra." The nurse rolled her eyes. No. It is just transport. We need to move a body down to the anatomy section for morning teaching. The porters are all busy, and I am behind on rounds." Sophia blinked. "A body? As in dead? As in not breathing, yes." The nurse thrust the clipboard toward her. "Room 9. Tags already attached. Just wheel him down to the basement and drop him at the teaching room. You have the key, right?" Sophia stared at the clipboard. It looked official enough. And she was too tired to argue. "Fine. But if he wakes up, you are coming back here to clean up after me." "Deal," said the nurse, already halfway down the hall. "Thank you, you are a lifesaver." Sophia muttered, "That's ironic," and trudged toward room 9. The hospital was unusually quiet tonight. The air conditioning hummed, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and a faint smell of disinfectant clung to her skin. She reached room 9, checked the clipboard, Lee Kang-hyun, age 32, cardiac trauma, and sighed. The man lay still under a white sheet, chest unmoving, face obscured. The tag was attached to his wrist. She hesitated for a moment, watching him. "You look too good to be dead," she said. There was warmth in his hand when she brushed against it to add just the sheet, but she dismissed it as residual heat. Bodies, she had learned, stayed warm for a while after death. "Well, Mr. Lee," she said softly, gripping the stretcher's handles, "let us go on one last ride." The wheels squealed as she pushed him down the corridor. Every creak echoed like a ghost following them. Sophia tried not to look at the sheet. She hated that faint human outline beneath it. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped in quickly, pressing the button for the basement. The ride down felt eternal. The elevator music was absurdly cheerful, a slow jazz tune that made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. The morgue was colder. Always was. Sophia's breath misted slightly as she rolled the stretcher through the heavy metal doors. She hated this room. The walls were lined with silver storage drawers, like the world's most depressing filing cabinet. She parked the stretcher near the wall, signed a quick entry in the logbook, and whispered, "Rest in peace, handsome stranger." Then she turned off the lights and left. Sophia was halfway through her coffee break when she heard it. A noise. A sharp, metallic bang from the basement corridor. Her mug froze halfway to her lips. "No," she whispered. "No. Another bang. Louder. And then, unmistakably, a voice shouting from behind the morgue door. "Is anyone there?" Sophia's blood turned to ice. She looked around the break room. Empty. The vending machine hummed innocently. The coffee smelled comforting but suddenly useless. "Diana," she muttered to her mop, "if I die down there, you tell my landlord I still owe rent." She grabbed the mop like a weapon and crept toward the noise. The hallway stretched long and dim. The sound came again, pounding, muffled shouting. Her hands trembled. Every horror movie she had ever watched began like this. When she reached the morgue door, she hesitated. The voice was clearer now. A man's voice, angry, panicked. "Open the damn door." Sophia took a deep breath. "If you are a ghost," she said out loud, "I am not religious enough for this." Slowly, she turned the handle. The door creaked open. And there he was, sitting up on the stretcher, alive, shirtless, and glaring like he had personally been dragged out of hell. His eyes were dark, sharp even in confusion, his hair disheveled, chest heaving. For a full 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Then both screamed at the same time. He shouted something in Korean. She shouted pure nonsense. The mop fell to the floor with a wet smack. "Who are you?" She yelled. "Who are you?" He barked back. "Where the hell am I? You are supposed to be dead. I am clearly not." They stared at each other, she, wild-eyed and clutching her coffee cup, he, half covered with a hospital blanket, looking like a very annoyed ghost. Finally, she stammered, Okay, I can explain. You can explain why I woke up in a refrigerator." Sophia winced. "Technically, it is not a refrigerator. More like climate-controlled storage." He gave her a look that could have frozen the air even further. "Listen," she said, trying to sound calm. "The nurse said you were dead. I was just doing my job. Do you have any idea how heavy you are?" He blinked, disbelief spreading across his face. Then, to her shock, he laughed, a low, disbelieving chuckle that echoed around the room. "You moved me to the morgue because someone told you I was dead?" Sophia shrugged helplessly. "I do not get paid enough to argue with nurses." He ran a hand through his hair, muttering something in Korean before switching back. "Unbelievable. You could have killed me. I thought you were dead." There was silence. Then, inexplicably, both started laughing, the kind of exhausted, hysterical laughter that only happens when reality has completely lost its footing. When it subsided, he leaned back against the wall, still smiling faintly. "What is your name?" "Sophia," she said cautiously. "And you?" "Lee," he replied, watching her. "And I need your help." Sophia folded her arms. "You need a doctor, not me. I mop floors, remember?" "No doctors," he said quickly. His voice dropped, serious now. "I cannot stay here. I am in danger." Her eyebrows shot up. "Danger? From who? Infection?" He hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Let us just say. Some people want me gone. Permanently. They have people everywhere. Even here." Sophia squinted. "You are saying hospital staff are assassins now?" He gave her a faint, humorless smile. "It would not be the strangest thing to happen tonight, would it?" She wanted to argue, but he had a point. He looked at her with eyes that were too calm for someone supposedly being hunted. "Please. I just need to get out of here quietly. If they find out I am alive, they will finish what they started." Sophia hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was madness. But there was something in his voice, a steadiness that made it sound true. "This is insane," she said finally. "I could lose my job for this." "You already wheeled a living man into a morgue," he said dryly. "I think the paperwork part is past saving." She stared at him. "You are very confident for someone half naked in a morgue." He smirked faintly. "Confidence keeps the blood warm." She tried not to laugh, failed. "You are unbelievable." He tilted his head, eyes softening. "Then believe me just once more. Help me get out of here." Sophia looked around, the cold room, the silent drawers, the flickering light above. She sighed. "Fine," she muttered. "But if this turns into a crime scene, I am not testifying." He smiled, that quiet, relieved kind of smile that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. "Deal." "Great," she said, snatching a hospital gown off a hook and tossing it at him. "Now put that on. You look too much like a corpse." As Lee struggled into the gown, Sophia glanced at the security camera in the corner. Dark, blinking red, maybe recording, maybe not. She prayed no one was watching. The two of them slipped into the hallway, Sophia pushing an empty cleaning cart to look casual. Lee limped beside her, half draped in a blanket, pale but steady. Every sound, a door creak, a shoe squeak, made her heart leap. "Try not to look suspicious," she whispered. "I was in a morgue," he muttered. "I think suspicion is built in." They passed a nurse at the far end. Sophia smiled awkwardly, pretending to clean a corner. The nurse barely glanced at them. When the elevator doors finally shut behind them, Sophia exhaled for the first time in 10 minutes. "You are insane," she told him. "Maybe," he said, leaning back against the wall, eyes closed. "But I am alive because of you." Something in his tone made her look away. "Do not get sentimental on me. I am still mad." He smiled without opening his eyes. "You are funny when you are angry." She rolled her eyes. "I am not angry. I am terrified." "Terrified looks good on you." She almost dropped the mop. "Do not flirt with the woman who dragged you out of a morgue." "Noted," he said, but his grin said otherwise. By the time they reached the parking lot exit, dawn was just beginning to touch the sky. Sophia handed him her spare hoodie from her locker bag, oversized, faded pink, with live, laugh, love printed across the chest. He stared at it like it was a crime. "Put it on," she ordered. "Dead men do not get to be picky." He pulled it over his head, the words stretched across his chest in ridiculous irony. She tried not to laugh, failed again. "Now what?" she asked. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Now we disappear." The parking lot was empty except for the early rumble of delivery trucks and the distant cry of a morning bird that sounded as tired as Sophia felt. A faint blue light hung over the asphalt, and the hospital loomed behind them, tall, grey, and judgmental, as if watching her make the worst decision of her life. Lee had just the pink hoodie, wincing as the cold air touched the fresh stitches along his ribs. The phrase live, laugh, love stretched across his chest like an inside joke the world was playing on him. Sophia tried not to notice how his frame filled it out. He looks less like a corpse now, she thought, and more like trouble that showers. He caught her looking. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. You just wear irony well." "Is that a compliment or an insult?" "Both," she said, then sighed. "Come on. Let's go before I lose the little sanity I have left." She led him toward the street exit, her mop cart abandoned by the door like a loyal pet she was betraying. They passed the security booth, thankfully empty except for a newspaper and a cold cup of coffee. The guard on duty was probably asleep in the storage room again. They slipped out without a sound. The city was still half asleep, the streets washed with the pale glow of dawn. Sophia wrapped her jacket tighter around herself and glanced at Lee, who walked with an uneven gait but an annoyingly steady composure. "You are walking like someone who just rose from the dead," she whispered. "I did," he replied, deadpan. She rolled her eyes. "You find this funny, don't you?" "A little," he admitted. "I mean, not everyone gets to say they were accidentally buried alive by a woman named Sophia who carries a mop." "I prefer professional sanitation specialist," she muttered. He smiled faintly. "That sounds sexier." "Stop talking," she said, though her lips twitched despite herself. They walked for a few blocks in silence. The air smelled faintly of rain and distant bakeries preparing for morning. Lee seemed to be studying everything, the quiet windows, the stray cat crossing the road, the way Sophia avoided looking at him for too long. "You should go home," he said eventually. "I'm going home," she said. "Good. You can drop me off somewhere on the way." She stopped. "Somewhere like where? You do not have an ID, money, or even shoes." He shrugged. "I will figure something out." She crossed her arms. "You will figure something out while bleeding through a hoodie that says live, laugh, love? Stranger things have happened." She let out a tired groan. "You are impossible." "Persistent," he corrected. "Same thing." They reached the edge of the hospital compound where the main road began. A taxi slowed down beside them, the driver squinting through his window. "Taxi?" he asked in a groggy voice. Sophia hesitated. Yes. 2 stops. Lee climbed in first, moving stiffly. She followed, clutching her bag. The driver glanced at them through the mirror, disheveled woman, half-dead man in pink hoodie, then wisely decided not to ask questions. Where to? He said. Eastwood Apartments, Sophia replied quickly. Lee leaned back, closing his eyes. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the engine and the quiet murmur of early traffic. Sophia studied him, the cut along his temple, the bruise near his collarbone, the faint tremor in his fingers. He didn't look like a man in control of anything. Yet somehow, he gave off the air of someone who always got his way. You are bleeding again, she said softly. I will live. Not if you keep pretending you are invincible. His lips curved. You sound like my doctor. I sound like a person who does not want another dead body on her conscience. He opened one eye. You have a conscience. She kicked him lightly on the ankle. Do not test it. He chuckled under his breath and looked out the window. By the time they reached her neighborhood, the sun was peeking between buildings, bathing the narrow streets in soft gold. Sophia's apartment was small, wedged between a bakery and a mechanic shop. She paid the driver, helped Lee out, and led him through the quiet stairwell that smelled faintly of coffee and paint. Her neighbor's door creaked open as they passed. Mrs. Park, retired, curious, and perpetually nosy, peered out, wearing a floral robe and suspicion. Sophia, she said, narrowing her eyes. You are back late again. Morning shift, Sophia lied quickly. Mrs. Park's gaze shifted to Lee. And this is my cousin, Sophia blurted. Lee blinked. Cousin? Yes, she hissed. From Busan. Mrs. Park's eyes brightened. Ah, Busan. Lovely city. You have your cousin's eyes, dear. Sophia smiled tightly. Yes. Genetics are wild. We must go, very tired. Bye. She dragged Lee inside before the old woman could start her usual interrogation. Once the door was shut, she pressed her back against it and exhaled hard. Lee grinned. Cousin? Shut up. From Busan? I panicked. He laughed quietly, the sound low and warm. You are terrible at lying. Good thing you are unconscious half the time, she shot back. He wandered to the couch and sat down, eyeing the cluttered room, mismatched furniture, a flickering lamp, 2 plants that looked suicidal, and a shelf of half-read books. It is cozy, he said diplomatically. It is small, she corrected. And do not touch anything. I would not dare, he said, leaning back with a smirk. You might throw a mop at me. Sophia grabbed her first aid kit from the kitchen. You are bleeding through your bandage. Take off the hoodie. Normally, people buy me dinner first. She gave him a sharp look. I am holding disinfectant. Try me. He lifted his hands in surrender and peeled off the hoodie. The bruises were worse under proper light, deep purple across his ribs, faint stitches along his side, and a small scar on his shoulder that looked old. Sophia frowned, dipping cotton into antiseptic. This will sting, she warned. I am used to pain. He wasn't ready for the sting. Oh, damn. That burns. She smirked. Used to pain, huh? I meant emotional pain, he muttered. She snorted. That I believe. They worked in silence for a while, she cleaning his wounds, he watching her with quiet amusement. Every time her fingers brushed his skin, he flinched slightly, and every time he did, she pretended not to notice. You are too careful, he said softly. I am avoiding a lawsuit. Do I look like the type to sue? Yes. He smiled. Fair. She finished wrapping the bandage and sat back, wiping her hands. There. Try not to get shot again. I will do my best. He studied her for a moment, expression unreadable. You are not like most people. That is not necessarily a compliment. It is. Most people would have left me in the morgue. I tried, she said dryly. You refused to stay dead. He laughed again, that same quiet, rich laugh that made her chest feel strange. You are something else, Sophia. She turned away quickly, pretending to pack up the first aid kit. You should sleep. I have work in the evening. Where do I sleep? Couch. He looked at the couch, then at her. You are sure it will not resent me? It already resents me, she said, tossing him a pillow. You will fit right in. Later, as she made instant noodles in the small kitchen, she could feel his gaze following her. Not in a heavy or intrusive way, more like he was quietly curious, trying to map the person who had saved him by accident. She turned, caught him staring, and raised an eyebrow. Do you want noodles, or are you just inspecting the furniture? He smiled faintly. Noodles sound perfect. She poured 2 bowls and handed him one. He accepted it like it was a royal meal. When he took the first bite, he closed his eyes. You are surprisingly good at this. It is instant noodles. Yes, but the water temperature was perfect. That takes talent. She shook her head, laughing. You are either very charming or very delusional. Why can't I be both? She looked at him for a beat too long before turning away. Eat your food, Lee. By mid-morning, exhaustion hit them both. Lee had fallen asleep on the couch, his breathing steady, the ridiculous pink hoodie now folded beside him. Sophia sat by the window, sipping coffee, watching the light crawl across the floor. She should have been terrified, hiding a possibly criminal stranger, lying to her co-workers, risking her job. But instead, she felt oddly calm. It had been a long time since anyone had made her laugh like that. Her eyes wandered to him again. Without the tension on his face, he looked younger, almost boyish. She wondered what kind of man wakes up in a morgue and jokes about it. The thought made her smile. Then she caught herself. No, she whispered. Do not be stupid. He stirred at the sound, mumbling something in his sleep. His hand twitched, knocking the remote off the couch. Reflexively, she leaned down to pick it up, just as he rolled over. Their heads bumped. Hard. Oh! She gasped. He blinked awake, startled. What? They froze, inches apart, her face close enough to feel his breath, both wide-eyed and mortified. Sophia quickly pulled back, clutching the remote like a weapon. Do not move. I bruise easily. Lee sat up slowly, a lazy grin spreading. Good morning to you too. It was not morning when I started regretting this, she muttered, standing up. Do you always greet people with headbutts? Only the uninvited ones. He leaned back again, laughing quietly. You are really something, Sophia. Stop saying that, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. He tilted his head, eyes soft. Then stop being something. She threw a pillow at him. He caught it easily, still smiling. Violence before breakfast. I like your style. By afternoon, the hospital would begin to notice the missing patient. Sophia knew it was only a matter of time before questions reached her. She should have been panicking, but instead she found herself watching Lee fix her broken lamp with the patience of a saint and the confidence of someone who had never used a screwdriver. He was clumsy, swore under his breath in 2 languages, but somehow managed to make her laugh the whole time. At one point, he looked up at her, hair falling over his forehead, and said, There. See? Functional. Like me. She tried to hide her smile behind her mug. Barely. He shrugged. Progress. For the first time in a long time, her apartment didn't feel so small. It felt like a story she hadn't finished reading yet. That night, as Sophia lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she could hear him breathing softly on the couch. The sound was strangely comforting. She thought about how absurd the last 24 hours had been: death, resurrection, pink hoodies, and instant noodles, and how, somehow, it all made sense. She closed her eyes. From the couch, a quiet voice said, Thank you. She turned her head slightly. For what? For not letting me die twice. She smiled into the darkness. Try not to make it a habit. He chuckled softly, and the sound lingered between them, warm, tired, and almost tender. For the first time in a long time, Sophia slept without dreaming. When Sophia woke, the first thing she noticed was the smell of coffee. The second was that her kitchen was being used without her permission. She sat up fast, hair sticking out in every direction. For one blissful second, She forgot the last 24 hours. Then the voice came. "Morning, sleepyhead," Lee said, standing by the stove like he owned the place. He had rolled up the sleeves of her pink hoodie, was barefoot, and looked irritatingly alive. The pan hissed with scrambled eggs that smelled better than anything she could afford this week. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice half asleep, half accusation. He pointed to the pan. "Domestic rehabilitation. You looked like you needed it." I looked. She blinked, then narrowed her eyes. "You are cooking in my kitchen?" "Yes. With my eggs." They were lonely. Sophia rubbed her temples. "Lee, in what world does this make sense? In a world where one of us almost died and the other one kidnapped him for fun." "I did not kidnap you." He turned off the stove. "You took me out of the hospital, hid me, and now I'm in your pajamas making breakfast." "I did not give you my pajamas. Wait, are those mine?" He looked down at the soft blue cotton pants and gave her a guilty grin. "They were hanging in the bathroom. I improvised." She groaned, covering her face. "Oh my God." "You're welcome," he said, placing a plate in front of her. "Eat. You look like you haven't slept in years." She stared at the plate, then at him. "You should really stop bossing people around. You're not a king." "I was treated like one once," he said casually, sitting across from her. "Then someone decided to bury me alive. That was an accident." He smiled. "A very thorough accident." Sophia tried not to laugh, failed halfway, and shoved a spoonful of eggs into her mouth to hide it. After breakfast, she gathered her things for her evening shift. Her hands trembled slightly as she tied her apron. Nerves, guilt, maybe something else. Lee watched from the couch, his body still recovering but his humor fully functional. "You're going back there?" he asked. "Yes, because normal people work," she said, stuffing her ID badge into her bag. "Unlike certain mysterious freeloaders." He tilted his head. "You could just tell them I died. I could also tell them you're in my apartment eating my groceries. That would be less believable." "Lee." He smiled softly. "Be careful, Sophia. If they find out you were involved." "They won't," she said quickly, then sighed. "They can't." She stopped by the door, staring at the peeling paint as if it might give her courage. "If anyone asks, don't open the door. Don't talk to Mrs. Park. And please, for the love of God, don't wear my clothes again." He placed a hand on his heart. "You wound me. It'll do worse if I get fired," she muttered and left before he could reply. The hospital was restless that evening. She felt it the moment she stepped in, the tight whispers, the nervous faces, the senior nurse barking orders. There was tension thick enough to trip over. She forced herself to smile at the front desk clerk. "Morning, Teo." Teo, who usually greeted her with lazy jokes, just shook his head. "You picked a bad day, Sophia. Everyone's losing it." Her stomach tightened. "Why?" "They can't find the body from Ward 7A, he whispered. "The male patient that coded yesterday." Her pulse skipped. "What do you mean, can't find?" He leaned closer. "Gone. Vanished. The morgue says he never arrived. The night nurse swears she labeled him. The doctor's losing his mind." Sophia forced a laugh that sounded more like choking. "That's insane, right? They are checking the CCTV. Somebody's in trouble." She felt her blood go cold. "CCTV." Her smile twitched. "Excuse me, I need to mop something." She rushed to the nearest supply closet and shut the door. The smell of bleach hit her like reality itself. Her heart pounded so loud it drowned out her thoughts. She pulled out her phone. "Sophia, they are looking for you. CCTV. What do I do?" "Lee, relax. Don't panic." "Sophia, don't panic. I'm one camera angle away from prison." "Lee, calm down. I told you, I was in danger. You did the right thing." "Sophia, in danger from who?" "Lee, people with more money than morals." "Sophia, that explains nothing." "Lee, and yet you're still texting me. Interesting." She glared at her phone so hard it might have cracked. 2 hours later, she was sweeping in the hallway when she saw Dr. Minute storm past, face red with frustration. "Find that damn body," he shouted. Another nurse followed, pale as a sheet. "Sir, we're checking every logbook." Sophia kept her head down, heart racing. Every squeak of her mop sounded like a confession. When she clocked out, her hands were still shaking. Lee was on the couch again when she came home, reading one of her old novels upside down. "You look tense," he said, not looking up. "They are searching for you," she said flatly. "The whole hospital. They think someone stole a corpse." He finally looked up, amused. "Technically, they're not wrong. This isn't funny. It is a little funny. Lee." He sighed and set the book down. "All right. Tell me everything." She told him about the CCTV, the shouting, the panic. When she finished, he nodded slowly, expression calm, too calm. "They won't find anything," he said. "How do you know that?" "I just know. Relax. I'm going to lose my job, my apartment, everything." He stood, wincing slightly from the movement, and took her by the shoulders. "Hey, look at me." She did, reluctantly. "You helped someone in need," he said. "That's all. You didn't commit a crime." "I lied. I stole. I forged a body transfer form. That's creative paperwork." "Lee." He smiled softly. "Sophia, breathe." She realized then how close they were, his hands still on her shoulders, his eyes softer than usual. She hated that it worked. That just standing there, feeling his warmth, made her forget why she should hate him. She took a step back, trying to find her words. "You're impossible. Persistent," he said again, and she almost laughed. Over the next few days, the apartment changed rhythm. Lee recovered faster than she expected. The color returned to his face, his steps grew steadier, and his teasing more frequent. He spent mornings reading her old books, afternoons trying and failing to help with chores, and evenings sitting by the window watching the city lights as if he'd missed them for years. And Sophia, against all logic, started to enjoy it. He made her laugh over burnt toast, called her doctor every time she checked his stitches, and once insisted on teaching her basic self-defense, which ended with both of them falling over the couch and laughing like idiots. Still, she tried to keep her guard up. He was mysterious, secretive. Sometimes, head pause mid-sentence, lost in thought, eyes shadowed with something he didn't want to explain. She told herself not to care. It didn't work. One rainy evening, they sat together watching a terrible old romance movie. The sound of thunder mixed with the distant hum of traffic. The main characters on screen kissed dramatically, framed by lightning. Sophia rolled her eyes. "No one kisses like that in real life." Lee smirked. "Maybe you just haven't tried." She threw a cushion at him. "You're ridiculous." "I'm right," he said, catching it effortlessly. "Most people don't do things until life gives them a reason." She raised an eyebrow. "And what's your reason?" He looked at her for a long moment, the teasing fading just slightly. "I almost died last week." The silence that followed was thick but not uncomfortable. "Just charged." Sophia turned back to the movie. "You should rest. Maybe later." When she glanced back again, he was still watching her, not the movie. There was something raw in his gaze that made her pulse quicken, and for a second, she wondered what it would feel like if he. She stood up quickly. "Tea. I'll make tea." He smiled faintly, like he knew. "Of course." That night, she dreamt she was back in the hospital morgue, standing over the sheeted body that wasn't quite dead. Only this time, when she pulled back the sheet, Lee smiled at her and said, "You shouldn't have done that, Sophia." And when she looked down, it wasn't her hand holding the file. It was his. She woke with a start, heart pounding. The living room was quiet, the rain still tapping against the window. She crept out, half expecting him to be asleep. He wasn't. He was sitting at the table, going through her bills. "What are you doing?" she whispered. He looked up, unfazed. "Just curious. Those are private." So is faking someone's death, he said mildly. Her jaw tightened. Give me that. He handed her the papers calmly. You're 3 months behind on rent. That's none of your business. I could help, he offered. When I'm back on my feet. She crossed her arms. You already helped yourself to my life. I didn't ask for this either, he said quietly. Believe me. Something in his tone stopped her anger mid-flight. There was honesty there, maybe regret, maybe something else. She didn't reply. He leaned back, eyes distant. Before all this, I thought I had everything figured out. Power, money, control. All of it. Then one mistake and suddenly I'm the one in a morgue. Sophia hesitated. Is that why you said you were in danger? Because of some mistake? He looked at her, then away. Let's just say I trusted the wrong people. She waited for more, but he said nothing else. The air between them felt heavier now, full of questions neither wanted to ask. The next morning, her phone rang while she was scrubbing the kitchen floor. It was the head nurse. Miss Sophia, the woman said curtly, you're to report to administration today. There are questions that needs answers. Sophia's heart sank. Of course, ma'am. When she hung up, Lee was leaning against the doorframe, already guessing. They found something, he said quietly. She nodded, throat dry. Maybe. They want to see me. I'll handle it, he said, reaching for his jacket. She frowned. You can barely handle a flight of stairs. I can handle a conversation. With who? He gave that same mysterious half-smile. Someone who owes me a favor. Lee. Sophia, he interrupted gently. Trust me. She hated how easily he said that, like it was simple. Like trust wasn't the most dangerous thing in the world. Fine, she said at last. But if this goes wrong. It won't. He brushed past her, heading for the door. Where are you going? She called. He glanced back. Out. To make sure you don't lose your job. And before she could say another word, he was gone. Hours passed. She sat on her couch, staring at her phone, imagining every worst-case scenario. Then, just as she was about to head to the hospital, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Meeting cancelled. Situation handled. Sleep. Sophia. Who is this? Unknown number. Told you to trust me. Lee. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Had done something. But what? She fell asleep that night with her phone still in her hand, wondering who exactly Lee was, savior, liar, or something in between. The next morning, the hospital called again. All cleared, they said. Clerical error. Wrong tag number. Case closed. Sophia nearly dropped her phone. Clerical error. The neatest, most convenient lie she'd ever heard. She should have been relieved. But all she could think was, what did he do? When she got home, Lee was cooking again. You fixed it, she said quietly. He smiled without looking up. Told you. How? He turned, meeting her eyes. You don't want to know. She crossed her arms. Actually, I do. He hesitated, then set the spatula down. Let's just say I reminded someone of a few debts. Favors still count, even when you're dead. She blinked. You bribed someone? He tilted his head. That's such an ugly word. Lee. He grinned. You're welcome. She should have been furious. She wanted to be. But instead, somehow, impossibly, she laughed. Because that was the problem with Lee. Every disaster he brought into her life came wrapped in charm. Later that night, they ate dinner in comfortable silence. Then, without warning, he said quietly, You saved my life, Sophia. She glanced at him. By mistake. Still counts. He leaned back, eyes soft. If I hadn't woken up when I did, I'd be gone. Maybe I was meant to meet you. She rolled her eyes. That's the cheesiest thing anyone's ever said to me. True, he said. But you smiled. She tried not to, but she did. You're ridiculous. And you like ridiculous. I tolerate ridiculous. He grinned. Progress. By the time they finished eating, the city outside had gone quiet. Sophia looked at him across the table, half annoyed, half something else. He smiled that infuriating, gentle smile, the one that made her forget logic. And for the first time since this whole mess began, she realized she didn't really want him to leave. By the fourth morning, Lee was part of the furniture. A very smug, opinionated, coffee-making piece of furniture. Sophia woke to the familiar sound of him humming in the kitchen, some old tune that didn't belong to any genre she knew. The smell of buttered toast drifted through the air. "You're up early," she called, rubbing her eyes. He turned, hair messy, hoodie sleeves rolled up. "Couldn't sleep. I think your couch is developing a personal vendetta against my spine." "Good," she muttered. "That makes two of us." He smirked, flipping a slice of bread. "You dreamt about me again, didn't you?" Sophia groaned into her pillow. "The day I dream about you is the day I file for psychiatric help." He looked over his shoulder. "You said again. I will pour that coffee on your head." He laughed, the sound easy and warm. "You're not nearly as scary as you think, Sophia." "I'm scarier than you think, Lee." "Prove it." She threw a pillow. He ducked. It hit the toaster instead. "Point made," he said, grinning. "Now sit. Breakfast's ready." They ate at the small round table that could barely fit 2 plates. She sipped her coffee, watching him through narrowed eyes as he read a newspaper he clearly hadn't bought. "Where'd you get that?" she asked. "Downstairs," he said casually. "Mrs. Parks?" "Borrowed," he corrected. "She thinks I'm your cousin, remember? She offered me banana bread." "She offered you? Or you just smiled?" He didn't answer. He just smiled again, the same maddeningly confident expression that could probably sell lies in bulk. Sophia sighed. "You're too good at that." "At what?" "Manipulating people." He looked up, genuinely surprised. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "I think you do it naturally." His smile faltered, just slightly. "Maybe. Survival skill." The shift in his tone made her pause. It wasn't defensive, just quiet, tired. Like something old had slipped through the cracks. She wanted to ask, but before she could, he folded the paper and said lightly, "You've got work soon, don't you?" "Yeah," she said, standing to wash her mug. "Double shift. Don't overwork yourself." She smirked. "You're saying that from my couch. I'm providing moral support." She turned, arms crossed. "You could help." He looked genuinely shocked. "Me? Help? How?" "I don't know. Laundry. Dishes. Being less annoying. I could try 2 of those." She threw the dish towel at him. The day passed without incident, but a strange unease trailed Sophia everywhere. Maybe it was exhaustion, or the creeping guilt that hadn't left since the morgue mistake. Or maybe it was the way Lee avoided certain questions, like where he worked, who had hurt him, or what exactly He'd been doing before that night. Whenever she asked, He'd deflect with a joke. It used to be charming. Now it was unsettling. By evening, the hospital buzzed with gossip again. Sophia was restocking supplies when her co-worker Hannah burst into the storage room, eyes wide with excitement. "Did you hear?" Hannah whispered. "That missing patient, they reopened the file." Sophia froze. "What?" "The admin says there were inconsistencies in his ID. Wrong insurance, no next of kin. It's like he doesn't exist." Sophia laughed weakly. "Probably just another clerical error." "Maybe," Hannah said, frowning. "But they are looking into it. Dr. Minute says the man's name might have been fake." Sophia's hand slipped on the clipboard. "Fake?" Hannah nodded. "Creepy, right? Who pretends to be sick, then vanishes?" Sophia forced a smile. "Yeah. Creepy." The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Her hands did their tasks, mopping, scrubbing, disinfecting, but her mind was elsewhere. By the time she returned home, she'd worked herself into a spiral. When she opened the door, Lee was sprawled on the couch, sketching something on a piece of scrap paper. He looked up, smiled, and immediately sensed something was off. "What happened?" he asked. "Who are you?" she blurted. He blinked. "What? I mean it, Lee. Who are you really?" He leaned back slowly, studying her. "That's a strange way to say hello. Don't do that. Don't joke. You said people wanted you dead. The hospital said your name was fake. You bribed someone to erase the records. I need the truth." For the first time since she met him, his smile disappeared completely. "Sophia," he said softly, "some truths aren't worth knowing. That's not your choice." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I told you, I got caught in something dangerous. I owed money to the wrong people. That's all." She crossed her arms. "Then why lie about your name?" He hesitated, just long enough for her to see it. "Because the less you know, the safer you are." "Stop saying that. I'm not some helpless nurse in a movie." He met her gaze, tired but steady. "You're right. You're the woman who dragged a half-dead stranger into her home. That makes you braver than most people I've met." It was such a disarming compliment that she almost forgot to be angry. Almost. "I don't want flattery, Lee. I want honesty." He looked at her for a long time, then said quietly, "You'll get it. Soon." They barely spoke the next day. The silence between them wasn't cold, just heavy. She caught him on the balcony more than once, talking on the phone in low tones, words she couldn't make out. Each time she appeared, head hung up. That evening, she sat on the couch, pretending to read, while he leaned against the window frame watching rain streak the glass. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "You can tell me," she said quietly. "Whatever it is." He turned, surprised. "Tell you what? What's really going on? You don't have to protect me from something I don't even understand." He studied her for a long moment, eyes unreadable. Then he crossed the room, sat beside her, and said, "What if I told you I wasn't who you think I am?" She didn't flinch. "I'd say I already figured that out." He smiled faintly. "You're impossible." "Persistent," she corrected, echoing his old joke. "Now talk." He looked down at his hands. "The name Lee. Isn't mine." "Not exactly. It's the one I used at the hospital because it didn't raise questions." "So what's your real name?" He hesitated. "Jin." "Jin what?" He shook his head. "Just Jin." She frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Most of my life doesn't." He stood, restless, pacing. "I wasn't lying when I said I owed money. I just didn't tell you who I owed it to." She leaned forward, heart quickening. "Who?" He stopped pacing and looked at her. "The hospital." Sophia blinked. "What?" He gave a humorless laugh. "Yeah. The hospital. Long story short, I used to work for a pharmaceutical supplier. Made some bad deals, signed some papers I shouldn't have. One day the numbers didn't add up, and suddenly I owed them more than I'd ever earn." She stared. "So you weren't being hunted?" "Only by debt collectors," he said dryly. "And the occasional angry accountant. So all that talk about danger was technically true. Financial danger counts, right?" Sophia stood slowly, equal parts relief and disbelief. "You let me think you were some Mafia target or something." He looked sheepish. "I never said that exactly. You implied it." "I might have." "Encouraged the misunderstanding." "Encouraged?" "Lee, Jin, whatever your name is, you blackmailed me." He winced. "Borrowed a situation. You faked your death to avoid hospital bills." He held up a hand. "In my defense, they were outrageous bills." She gaped at him. "You're unbelievable." He grinned faintly. "And yet you still fed me noodles." She threw a cushion at his head. "Get out." "Sophia." "Out." He stood, hands up in surrender. Okay. But you should know, if I leave now, you'll be sleeping in an alley." "Perfect." He hesitated by the door. "You'll regret this." She folded her arms. "Doubt it." He smiled, soft but sad. You will. Then he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia sank onto the couch, staring at the hoodie head left behind. Live, laugh, love. The words had never looked so mocking. She should have been furious. She was. But underneath the anger sat something worse, disappointment. Because somewhere between the sarcasm and burnt toast, she'd actually started to believe in him. The next morning, the hospital called again. Miss Sophia, her supervisor said briskly, we've completed our internal audit regarding the missing patient. Sophia froze. Yes? There's been a discovery. It seems the patient's file was tied to unpaid balances under a false identity. We've confirmed he fabricated his admission records. Her throat went dry. Oh. And, the supervisor added, the security footage recovered from the parking lot shows you assisting him out of the facility. Sophia's heart sank. Ma'am, I can explain. No need, the woman said wearily. You are suspended till further notice. She hung up before Sophia could protest. The room spun. She sat down, head in her hands. She just lost her job. Because of him. That evening, she returned home to find the apartment quiet. Too quiet. His hoodie still draped on the couch, his half-finished sketch left on the table. She picked it up. It was her. Sitting by the window, hair falling across her face, the city lights behind her. Messy, imperfect, but full of life. The drawing was unfinished, but the detail in her eyes was unmistakable. Had drawn her the way he saw her, not as a mistake, but as something worth looking at. Her throat tightened. Idiot, she whispered. She placed the drawing on the table, then noticed something else, an envelope, tucked beneath the coffee mug. Her name on the front. She opened it slowly. Sophia. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You deserve better than lies and bad noodles. I didn't fake everything, just the parts that kept me alive. Thank you for being the first person to see me as more than a debt. If I could stay, I would. But disappearing is the only thing I've ever been good at. Lee. Or Jin. Or whoever I am this week. P.S. Keep the hoodie. It suits you more. Sophia stared at the note for a long time. Then she laughed, a short, broken laugh that hurt more than it helped. Coward, she muttered. Charming, lying coward. She sank into the couch, clutching the letter, surrounded by the quiet echoes of the man who turned her world upside down just by waking up on the wrong table. Outside, the rain started again, gentle this time, almost forgiving. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for Sophia's life to almost feel normal again. Or at least a version of normal where she still woke up some nights expecting to hear someone badly singing off-key in her kitchen. The apartment felt too quiet now. No sarcastic commentary. No burnt toast. No mysterious sketches left on napkins. Just silence, and a half-empty jar of coffee she still refused to throw out. She'd gone back to work after her suspension was lifted temporarily, which had been humiliating enough. Her co-workers treated her like she'd survived a scandalous soap opera plot. Some offered sympathy. Others whispered behind her back. Sophia pretended not to care, and failed miserably. The worst part? Somewhere deep down, she missed him. Not the liar part. Not the manipulative, fake name, fake mafia, fake death part. But the annoying, oddly gentle man who made her laugh when she was too tired to stand. She hated that she missed that version. It was a Tuesday evening when her life decided to mock her again. Rain again, as if the weather itself was addicted to drama. Sophia stood under her umbrella, waiting for the bus after a double shift, scrolling absently through her phone. That's when she heard it. A voice behind her. Low. Familiar. Unapologetically smug. Miss me? Her heart froze. No. No, it couldn't be. She turned slowly. And there he was, Lee. Or Jin. Or whatever identity he was testing this week, standing under the dim streetlight, hands in his pockets, rain dripping from his hair. Same eyes. Same half-smile. Same ridiculous confidence. Don't faint, he said. That would be awkward in public. Sophia stared at him for a solid 5 seconds before saying flatly, "You have got to be kidding me." He smiled wider. "Surprise. Surprise. You vanish, ruin my job, leave a goodbye letter like you're in a melodrama, and you show up saying surprise? Well, I didn't want to text. Felt impersonal." "Oh, sure. Let's not be impersonal about fraud." He chuckled, stepping closer. "You're still angry. I'm calmly furious. There's a difference." He tilted his head, raindrops catching on his lashes. "You look good when you're furiously calm. Flirting won't save you this time. Didn't last time either. Then why are you still trying?" He shrugged. "Hope. Poor impulse control. A little of both." She sighed, turning away. "Go home, Lee. I don't have one." That made her pause. Just long enough for him to step beside her. His voice softened. "Let me explain. You explained enough with your lies. I didn't lie about everything." "Oh really? Which part was true? Your name? Your tragic backstory? The part where you owe people money? Because last I checked, none of that. I came back, didn't I?" That shut her up. She blinked at him. "You came back because what? You missed my coffee?" He smiled faintly. "Because you were the only person who didn't treat me like garbage. I ruined that. I wanted to make it right." Sophia crossed her arms. "And how exactly do you plan to make it right?" He hesitated. "Dinner." She blinked. "Dinner?" He nodded earnestly. "I'm thinking something classy. Like ramen. My treat this time." "You're impossible," she muttered. "And yet, somehow, you're still here." She glared at him. "One dinner. Then you disappear again." He grinned. "Deal." They ended up in a tiny noodle shop a few streets away, one of those cozy holes in the wall where steam fogged the windows and everyone pretended not to eavesdrop. Lee ordered confidently. Sophia sat stiffly, arms crossed. When their bowls arrived, he said, "So, how have you been?" "Recovering from fraud." He winced. "Okay, fair. But besides that? Working. Eating. Avoiding idiots. Yet here you are with one." She stabbed her chopsticks into the noodles. "Don't test me." He smiled. "You're adorable when you threaten me. You're delusional. Occupational hazard." They ate in silence for a while, the kind of silence that wasn't entirely comfortable but wasn't hostile either. Every now and then, He'd glance at her with that unreadable look, like he was memorizing something He'd lost. Finally, she sighed. "Why did you come back?" He hesitated. "I owed you an apology. And something else." "What?" He reached into his jacket and slid an envelope across the table. She frowned. "What's this?" "Payment." She blinked. "For what?" "Emotional damages?" "For the hospital debt." Sophia froze. "What?" "I told you I'd make it right," he said quietly. "It took a few weeks, a few favors, and a terrifying man with bad teeth, but it's settled." She opened the envelope. Inside was a receipt, official, stamped, cleared. Her eyes widened. "You actually paid it off?" He nodded. "Every penny. Where'd you even get that kind of money?" He gave a small smile. "Turns out pretending to be dead pays off, if you're creative enough." "Lee." "Relax," he said, laughing. "It's clean money. I did some stuffs." "You mean crime." "I mean logistics." She shook her head, but the smile tugged at her lips. "You're unbelievable. Still charming though." She rolled her eyes. "Barely." After dinner, they walked back through the drizzle. Something about the night, the rain, the glow of streetlights, the steam from the shop, softened the edges between them. They stopped at her apartment building. She turned to him, keys in hand. "Well, you did your good deed. Congratulations. Debt cleared, ego satisfied." He nodded. "Guess so. And now?" He hesitated. Now I ask if you'll let me come up. Just for tea. Tea? Or coffee? Or to stand awkwardly in your kitchen while you pretend not to smile. She stared at him. You're really not good at subtlety. I don't do subtle. It gets people killed. You're not in danger, Lee. He smiled faintly. No. But I could be if I misread that look. She tried to glare, but her lips betrayed her. Curving just slightly. Fine, she said, unlocking the door. But 1 cup. Deal. But 1 cup turned to 2, and 2 to 3. Then one thing led to another and, you know. They had their little moment. And the rest is history. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll always be the first to catch my new stories.